Well, the reason we got into it was we met with Craig Fryer, who at that time was the Apple Games Evangelist, and partly it was that and our location so close to Apple, and they saw the 3D engine that we had already running on the PC. When we went down to Apple and they showed us this box, big grey box with IBM on it, and a little Apple monitor on top, and they said, "Look," and we said, "It's a Mac," and they went, "Exactly." And we just weren't getting it, and they finally explained that it was a Mac, but it wasn't a Mac. It was the first time the OS had come up and run on something that wasn't a Macintosh. And basically it was the PowerPC. And they showed us some of the speed trials and stuff, and we were really excited about it. So Colin Boswell, our senior Mac engineer, got going. We bought our first Power Mac, and Apple gave us some equipment as well. And we got going and ported the engine in a matter of weeks and brought it down. And at that time we couldn't even compile it because one didn't really exist for the Power Macintosh at that point, so we had to bring it to Apple and run it there, and we all heaved these huge sighs of relief as this 3D MiG-29 started spinning around the screen first time. And at the time it was one guy in the room, and by the time we were finished 20 minutes later there was 15 engineers deep, and I don't know if you've seen 15 engineers excited, but it's not a pretty sight. But we then moved on from there to porting the whole 3D engine, and Flying Nightmares set up and ran, which was a PC port, and could have been a lot better, but we were pushed for time to get it out with the Power Mac. Was one of the major objectives, was to get it there at launch, and as a consequence of which it really is a DOS port, which in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just doesn't take advantage of some of the things the Mac could do. Then we set about doing Out of the Sun. One of the major feedbacks, we're very big into getting feedback from the users by email or on the return cards or whatever way we contact them or at shows. And one of the big things we heard was that people wanted more of a Mac interface. So on Out of the Sun, we really went to town on that. It was a new revision of our 3D engine, which put a lot more polygons and pushed the machine a lot more and supported higher resolutions, like up to 1024, 768 or 21-inch monitors. And I think that had a lot more Mac feel about it. And now, because of the success of both of those products, we have an entire Mac division. Between Flying Nightmares and Out of the Sun, we're over 100,000 units just in the US, and Japan is going very well. And we hope to ship 8 Power Macintosh titles by the end of this year. Well, the strategies have changed as the years has progressed. When it started, Mac games were much more ground roots and a lot more through word of mouth, Apple Link, eWorld, whatever. Well, eWorld wasn't going then. Stuff like that, working with user groups, that seemed to make a big difference. And a lot of the retail was speciality at that time. And also Apple put a demo of the game on the CD, which generated a lot of interest. So we found that the majority of our sales were coming from specialist Macintosh stores, mail order, or catalog was a big thing. All of the Mac catalogs that are out there, Mac Warehouse and all that, they seem to shift a lot of product. But we've noticed over the past year, as Mac has become more and more of a gaming platform, mainly through the PowerPC, we've found that we're getting more and more sales through the normal channels, the software, etc., the Babbage's, Egghead, and CompUSA and stuff like that. So that's made it more traditional, although we still try and support the users group as much as we can. At first, we didn't realize how much how important it was with the catalogs. We've done a lot. We've managed to sort of create awareness a lot of times by joint marketing, where we've done things like a bundle deal with CH Products, and they're advertising in all the warehouse, Mac Warehouse, and whatever. So that's giving us a fairly big spread in those mags. We do obviously advertising in the normal print press. We haven't done so much co-marketing with the stores on Mac stuff, although we're looking into doing that now. And I think over time, Mac users probably weren't in the habit of wandering into the local software store and seeing shelf after shelf of Mac, but that's coming. we're on the platform, and that gives it some impetus. But obviously, when you get Lucasfilm and EA and Wing Commander and whatever coming out, that sort of helps a lot with the retailers, and they see familiar titles and they go, oh, okay, we'll stick that on the shelf. But Mac software traditionally has been very slow burn. We were amazed that on the PC, within the first 3 months, you've sold 75% of what it's going to sell. Usually, I mean, some titles like Myst will keep going forever. But whereas when you get to the Mac, we were finding, okay, it sold in pretty well, but then it continued selling on and on and on, and we still, a few thousand units every month of Flying Nightmares, and that's titles a year old. It's just not heard of on the PC market. So for that would indicate that it's not quite so commercially orientated. It's not such a, you have to create this. You're not creating a big awareness very quickly as you can do on the PC. Oh, don't do it. Leave it all to us. That's my major bit of advice. My major bit of advice would be to cater to the Mac's unique tastes. We learned a lesson with Flying Nightmares. You got to listen to the users. You got to give them what they want. If there's some things you can't do, we can't do 10,000 texture map polygons per 25 frames a second. Although we will one day as power Macs get quicker and quicker. But other things that you can do. If it means putting a Macintosh user interface on it, do that. If supporting the Macintosh file selectors, stuff that makes it work properly. Don't trash the networks. Make it friendly. Otherwise, people will hate you for it. And rightly so. This was stuff we weren't aware of when we did the first Mac. We were in such a rush just to get something on the platform, and just so that people who bought the new machine would have something that could really show it off. We learned it with Out of the Sun, and with Absolute Zero, we've really gone to town on Mac interface. It just looks like a Mac game in every way. It's different when you're doing something that's very 3D to remember all the 2D stuff, and we spend so much time and effort getting our 3D engine as fast as possible, and we're constantly revising and coming up with new things. But so you do have to bear that in mind when you're porting. I agree. I think right now historically you're definitely correct. I think it's turned Apple around. It's a great piece of hardware. They bought into a technology that keeps getting better, and without completely obsoleting the previous machine. I mean, Windows killed off the previous PCs and made them obsolete because they just weren't quick enough to run Windows. Power Mac, hasn't killed off the previous machines. It's just, a smoother, easier upgrade path. You can plug in a Power PC card. Intel or any of those architecture machines just don't look after you in that way. And looking into the future with some of the stuff we've seen coming from Apple, the chipset keeps getting faster and faster. The 604 is like a gift from heaven. It's a beautiful piece of hardware. The PCI-based Macs are going to be incredibly fast. We've run some tests on ours, and they're amazing. So not only has it saved Apple, but I think it'll actually expand Apple's market share beyond what it is. I think the clones obviously help a lot, and I think Apple definitely turned a corner. We're very happy with the sales of our stuff on the platform. I think there's two ways of looking at the CD. If you're making a game like Myst that inherently it uses the massive storage space, that's one thing. The other thing is the convenience of it. I mean, okay, your game only takes up 20 megs. You could ship it on 5 floppies if it was all compressed up. That's all very well, but there's the user convenience. You got 10 games, that's 200 megabytes. No one's got the space to do that. So it's, if you put the majority of the game on the CD and they can store bits and pieces, a couple of megs or 5 megs on their hard drive, that's a lot more convenient for the user. So that's really looking at it as a delivery method. Looking to the future, most of our games, because we've got such a 3D basis, up until now we haven't used a lot of the storage space. But now with texture mapping, with all of the intros and stuff that we're putting on our games, it'll move towards CD only. You could deliver something on the floppy, but it wouldn't have texture mapping, and it wouldn't have any of the frilly bits, and it wouldn't have such nice interfaces. And we've become a lot better at integrating the CD, the storage space into the game, as opposed to just sort of sticking an intro on the front end and just, which is a nice thing because it does generate, excitement and gets people into the game. But for instance, in Absolute Zero, there's loads of QuickTime movies within the game that are important from getting from one point of the game to the other. You zoom in and out of screens. Menus aren't static anymore. You look at TV, things don't just come up on the screen and sit there. They fade, they pan, they zoom in. They do. You have nice transitions between things, and QuickTime and other CD-based things can let you do that.